yesterday we went over how to approach SAT questions. So I want to review this with you. And this is basically the crux of what we'll take away. So please, this is the last day of math, so please make sure you have this approach clearly written out. So I'll review this once quickly, which is when you find a math question, you should highlight the important information in the question, underline it, then write down values and units for any values. Then you want to write down the ask clearly, very, very clearly, write down the ask in words, because that's where many of you make mistakes. Remember the second part questions we went over? Then you want to read through the options. So you're not done reading until you read through A, B, C, D. And for those of you that are new, please write this down or take a screenshot. This is very important. Okay, then yesterday we went over different approaches to solve the same question, remember? So what I've done is I've sort of organized them in an order of priority. You can take this order of priority if you like it. If not, that's fine. But this is my suggestion. My suggestion is to first eliminate any of the multiple choice answers as you can, just by using logic. Then you want to plug and chug. So you want to plug in the MCQs into the questions. You want to plug them in. And you can also plug in 0, 1, negative numbers, positive numbers, and infinity, both positive and negative infinity, into the X values. Many times just plugging these things into X can make it much easier. You don't have to solve the entire equation. So you can plug in these values, and obviously you have to plug in the MCQ options because those are the answers. Once you've done that, then you're starting to narrow down the MCQ. So you have maybe 4 options, you cut out 2, you have 2 left, so you're narrowing down from those 2. And if all of this doesn't work, then you can use your calculator on the calculator section. And if that doesn't work also, then you can just use algebra to solve. I would put both of these as last, as equally last, but notice how, please notice how these 2 are last. If you're struggling with time on the SAT, that means you need to employ more of these methods. The SAT is tailor-made so that people that just solve it using these 2 methods take too long. So if you're doing these 2 methods, you will be short for time. Each question, like you saw, is tailor-made to have another faster way to solve it. So please spend a little bit of time finding it. And then you'll see I've added one more thing today. And this is really important, which is once you get your answer, if you solve for X, then just make sure that what you got matches the ask of the question that we said over here. You remember the question that was asking for 8X? If you solve for X and you read the ask is asking for 8X, then you need to go back and multiply your answer by 8. The 2-part questions will always be there to trick you. So today, hopefully, well, okay, let's see. How many of you got this? The question is, who thinks this makes sense and they are going to follow this approach? From now on, does this make sense and will you follow this approach? Okay, all right, so many of you, every one of you almost, said that this makes sense and you will follow this approach. Great, so you have all committed, 98% of you have committed that you are going to follow this approach. So I am going to put up a couple questions today and we will see whether or not you are true to your words, all right? So let's jump right into it and let's do some math, shall we? So let me share my screen. Okay, so this is the question. So please, you should have paper 1 printed by now. So this is paper 4, calculator section 26. So please do this if you have it printed so you can actually underline in the question. So please read the question first, follow the approach. Read the question, see the units, find out the ask, and then solve the question. And if you have the answer already, just make sure your answer matches the ask that you identified. All right, another 10 seconds. All right, cool. Okay, so let's go through the steps together. The first step is to highlight important information. So we read this question, there's a botanist studying production of plants, 2 types of pear trees, okay? Then we know type A produces 20% more pears than type B. So we know A produces more than B. So based on Karina's observation, if type A produces 144, so A equals 144, then how many does type B produce? The question is, the ask is, how many does type B produce? Okay, the units are pairs for both A and pairs for both B, so that's okay. So the ask is, what's B? What does B produce? So we know if A produces more, then A has to be times 1.2, so 20%, equals B, right? And so we do 1.2 times 144. Oops. Also, you should be able to unmute yourself 1 second. Yes. Okay. Times 144 equals B. So, yeah, Naman, am I doing this right?
I think it's 1.2 into B is equal to A.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay. Exactly. Okay. Only if you have 1.2, then A is greater than B stands. Okay. No wonder. Okay. And then you have 144, 1.2B, and so B equals 2, 120. So you will notice that you can cross out D because that's more than 144, right? And then you just have to choose between these 3. So that's how you plug it in. So that's that one. And this part, like you saw, I also, even though I practiced this, I also made the mistake in doing the equation. So this is, and we call this mistake word problem 2 equation error. So if you made that mistake also, then just write that down and practice converting word problems into equations. This will happen very, very often. Okay, so that was the review. Let's do one more. We're going to go back to the non-calculator section. 3.9. Okay. So you remember this? We went over a couple different ways to solve this yesterday, but today I want you to think. I want you to pause. I want you to try eliminate MCQ, plug in chug, narrow down MCQ, and only then use algebra to solve. So I'll relaunch this poll. I'm telling you now, please don't just go directly solving. Please try and work with the multiple choice questions. I'll give you all another 30 seconds. And if you got the answer, please try and think of different ways you could have solved this question. All right, and Paul? Okay, so in this one, hopefully you paused and you looked at the equations. Let's read the question together. We have two equations. We will notice that here the x and the y are flipped. So let's just fix that for ourselves. 3x plus 4y equals negative 23. And then negative x plus 2y equals to negative 19. All right, and then they're asking us, what is the solution xy? So they want xy to the system of equations above. Super. So we have these options. Let's take a look at these options. And then hopefully, if you plugged it in, you identified one of the equations. Let's pick, I like this equation quite a bit. And you just plugged in these questions. So if you want a big negative number, then you will need a positive number, hopefully, and a negative number. So you have a positive number, a negative number here and here. And when you plug in these options, then you find B is the right answer. Because you get negative 3 minus 2 times 8, plus 2 times minus 8, and that equals to negative 19. Right, because negative 16 minus 3. So the answer is B. So if you got something else, please identify what the root cause was, and please keep it as a tracker of your root cause. 1 second. All right, let's go to the next one. These will get harder and harder as we go by today, so hopefully you're tracking. 4.2. Let's get started. Please, again, read the question. Write down the values, write down the units, write down the ask, clearly write down the ask. I'm telling you again, this question is going to trick you. Write down the ask of the question. And once you get the answer, then compare your answer to the ask of the question. All right, I'll give you another 20 seconds. Okay, if you got D, please, that's not the right answer. Check again. If you put down D, check again, please. All right, stopping the poll. All right, folks, I have to share this. You all are amazing. You're reading the question. This makes me so proud. What's the trick here? The trick is the answer is not K. The answer is the ask is Y when X is 5, not K. What's the value of K that you get? Or, oh, it's not even here. Okay, never mind. No wonder you can get tricked. Fine. So you're reading the question. Great. Let's move on. This was easy. Let's get a little harder. All right, this one is hard. So please look at the options and really look at the options before you start working on the solution. Really look at the options again. My point of going through these questions is to demonstrate to you that this approach is beneficial. The approach of looking at the options and reading the question is beneficial. So please do it. Okay, so MCQ, eliminating MCQ means multiple choice questions or these answers. So eliminate this. Plug and chug means plugging in these numbers into the equation. So you're plugging in these numbers into the equation, or you're plugging in 0, 1, negative, positive, infinity, etc. This is a tough question, so please look at these carefully and notice what the difference is. And we're in the calculator section also. All right, another 10 seconds. All right. Okay. For this one, can someone that put the answer C raise your hand, please? Devam, come on up. So Devam, were you here yesterday? Do you want to walk us through? Let's read. You want to read the question with me first, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So tell me what to highlight as you go through. Okay.
So the data in the table above were produced by a sleep researcher studying the number of dreams people recall when asked to record their dreams for 1 week.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps while reading the question, I would highlight 1 week, but
Yes,
it's not really relevant.
Yep. But you. Okay.
So group X consisted of 100 people. Yeah, I'd highlight that 100 people, and group Y also consisted of 100 people.
Yep. And group Y, 100 people. Yep. So let's put X.
If yeah.
And Y, 100 people. Okay.
A person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream. So I'd underline those who recalled at least one dream.
Okay, so those who recall at least one dream. Okay.
Yeah. What is the probability that the person belonged to group Y? So belong to group Y is what I would underline as well.
Probability, the ask is here.
The answer is here. Yeah.
But okay. So I also want to highlight for those other people is that this is, you want to highlight if the person is chosen at random, because this is conditional probability, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So keep going. So what do you do then?
So, yeah. So I looked at the table.
Oh,
and
no.
I found,
You missed a step.
okay, I went through the options.
Perfect. Thank you. I bet you did. All right. What did you do?
I did. I just
Okay.
solving it. I went through the table.
Yeah. What did you notice in the options?
Yeah. So 2 of them, the numerator is 79.
Okay. So numerator 79. Yep.
And the first 2, the denominator is 100.
Perfect. So denominator equals 100. Yep.
And the denominator of C is the numerator of D.
Denominator of C is the numerator of D. Ah, okay. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yes. Good observation.
Yeah. Those are, I think that's all.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think the other things we can see is this is total population.
Total population. Yeah.
And this is pop X or Y, right?
Yeah.
And this one's interesting. This one's a question mark. Okay. So then what do you do?
So then I looked at the question again. It said, is chosen randomly from those who recalled at least one dream.
Those who,
So, so I know that'll be 1 to 4 or 5 or more. So that's essentially total minus none.
so here, okay. So basically these two boxes.
Some of those two, which is 164.
Yeah.
So now I know that's like my total sample space from what I need to choose the answer.
Yeah.
So then I looked at
Let me pause it
how
there.
many of, yeah.
You
So
can,
how many of those are in group Y? So basically the second row
Yeah.
from 1 to 4 are 5 or more. So that's 11 plus 8.
Is this okay?
Yeah. So I did 79 by 164.
Okay, thank you. So just over here, once you got 164, you should be able to pick this already, because it's the only one with the numerator of 164. And then you can go back and confirm in case they were simplifying for another, they were simplifying the fraction for something. So you want to always keep the options in the back of your head. Thank you so much, Devan. Very well done. Good job reading the options and good job reading the question and crossing out MCQs. All right, I did this in depth because quite a few of you got this wrong. So hopefully this makes sense. There is a concept here. So if you don't understand conditional probabilities, write this one down and then you can approach conditional probabilities. Cool, let's do 4.26. Oops. 1 second. How did that happen? Oh, we just did this one. Yeah, that's right. Okay, no wonder. All right, 4.27, let's do this one. All right, folks, I'm going to tell you, if you have to follow the approach very carefully. Please highlight important information, write down the values and equation and units, write down the ask, clearly write down the ask, please. Read through the options, notice what the differences in the options are, and only then eliminate MCQ, plug and chug, narrow down, calculator, algebra. I'm telling you again, this is a trick question. Don't get tricked by the trick question. Please look at the ask. Clearly look at the ask. All right, I'll give you another 20 seconds. Please, folks, please read the question again and look at the ask. A majority of you have this one wrong. More than 50% of you have this one wrong. All right, I'm stopping another 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I am going to share these results. Okay, I want you to look at these results very carefully. Okay, more than 50% of you have put B. All right, now I want to ask you another question. Is this question difficult? Like is the mathematics in this question difficult? That's the question. Is the mathematics in this question difficult? I'm ending poll. Okay. So I respect a lot that for some of you this is difficult, and I understand. Then please, this is not the class. I'm sorry, I can't go into it, but I do urge you to look at resources online to help you with that aspect. But for the others of you, I want you to notice one thing. The mathematics in this question is not as difficult as IB mathematics, or even the most difficult question in this paper. Yet this is the question that most of you got wrong. It's not the most difficult questions that we'll go over that people get wrong. It's questions like these, which is why we spend 10 days just stressing the fact on reading questions clearly and carefully. And even I made a mistake in front of you today. So I want you to just understand that SAT is not about difficult mathematics. And I'll touch on this point again in the future, but SAT is really about practicing the skill of reading the question, understanding the ask, making sure you are clearly writing down the ask, and then looking at the answer. So for that, can I please have somebody that put C raise their hand, please?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So I put C, and the reason I put C is that I observed the table and I found out that the average is quite close to 150 for each region.
Okay.
And after looking at that,
So
I've sort of made a table in front of me.
Wait, so Tanay, I think today's your first class, right? So I'm gonna let somebody else come up because I want them to walk us through the reading question and how they did that also.
Okay.
Hello.
Wait, also,
I choose.
I'll come back to you, please.
Yeah, so I choose B because the average is 150. Yeah.
Okay. Anil, you want to come out, please? You want to walk us through reading the question? Oh, no, Anil.
Yeah.
Oh, you are
B, right?
I'm here. So so for what I did, what I did was I took the mean of the entire thing. So I added up all of the number of earthworms and then divided by the number of people there.
Anil, you want to read the question first, please?
So wait, I wasn't done. I put C.
I know, I understand, but we're gonna, all right, Lavanya, you want to come up?
Sure. So should I start with the question?
Yes, please. Thank you. Let's start with the question. All right, good.
So the first thing I took note of was that the field was 10 by 10 meters and that they were sectioning off 1 meter section. So that would mean there would be 100 sections, right?
So 100 sections, yeah.
So that was the first thing I took note of when I was just going through the question and just taking down all the important notes.
Yeah.
And then it mentioned that the depth was 5 centimeters. So I took that down too because I didn't know if that was going to be important.
Okay, so we have, where's the depth? Okay, well, so go sentence by sentence with me. So let's start here. Keep going from here.
All right, yeah, so we have the 10 by 10 meters, and then it said that 10 students marked off a randomly selected region of the field, right? So then I marked down the fact that it was 10 students.
Students, okay. Randomly selected. So we put students. Okay.
And then each region is a square, so I thought that might be relevant as well.
Makes sense. So then we draw a square here. Yep.
And the length of it is a meter.
1 meter, so 1 meter by 1 meter. Yep.
And the fact that none of the regions overlap, I guess, might be relevant.
Yep. And then because of that, you can get 100 sections. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
So then the next.
Well, keep reading.
So the students count the earthworms contained in the soil to a depth of 5 centimeters. So the fact that they only went 5 centimeters down.
Earthworms, 5 centimeters beneath the ground. Yeah.
And the results are in the table. So from the table, this was probably not the best tactic, but I kind of just took a rough estimate and said that the average was around 150.
That's awesome. Cool.
That was just by looking at the table. So then what I did was,
well, keep reading the question. We still have a lot of the question to go.
Right. It says, which is the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground's surface. Yeah. So essentially what I took from that is it wants a guess of the total number of earthworms on the entire field.
Yep, so ask is earthworms in the entire field or in full field? This is the ask, right?
Yeah. And I think it was trying to confuse the student by saying that it was a depth of 5 centimeters, which I don't think that's relevant in the answer, or at least I didn't use it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So then I took that it was if it was 100 sections, and if they got an average of 150 worms per 100 sections, if you multiply the two, you get 15,000, which is why I put C.
Awesome. Okay, but you still missed, we still not done reading the question. Continue reading the question, please. What happens after entire field? What do you see?
Oh, it's got the, you got to look over the options.
Yes.
The multiple choice options.
Yes, perfect. And what do you notice?
Well, I guess they all have 15 in them, right? They're just 15 increasing in value.
They're 15 times 10 to the power something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yes, okay, so because of these options is why this average is fine. You can do that. Because these options are like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lavanya.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, folks, for everybody else that came out earlier and I sort of muted you. That was kind of rude of me. I shouldn't have done that. The point of today is this, the last math session. I really want to stress the fact that the questions, you have to go from here all the way to here and then start solving. Is it not updating anymore? No, is my screen updating still?
No, I don't think I saw the last thing you wrote.
Okay. That's fine. Right, but the point of this is that you should be reading the entire question as you go solving the paper. It's really, really important. Okay, there we go. All right, so again, if you don't read the question, then you fall trap to this, and more than 50% of you got this wrong. This is the kind of thing SAT is trying to catch you in. So let's keep going, 4.28. All right, we're gonna do 28. Let me start this. We are in the calculator section, so just remember that. All right, I'll give you another 20 seconds. This is a tough question. This is not an easy question. It's a difficult question. And if you're done, please think of a different way to solve this question. All right. I'm going to end poll. Okay. Right. Can somebody who wants to read this question with me? Oh, Varuni.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, they've given us a graph with the 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
And the question is, if the system of inequalities y greater than equal to 2x plus 1 and y greater than half x minus 1 is graphed on the xy plane above, which quadrant contains no solutions to the system?
Yeah.
So what I underlined was the 2 inequalities given to us.
Perfect.
The ask was, which quadrant contains no solutions to the system?
Nice. Thank you for identifying the ask. Also, I think it's just important to just note that the inequality signs are different here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the ask is, which quadrant contains no solution? The important part is no solution here.
Yes.
So let's done ask is quadrant with no solution. All right, perfect. Then what did you do?
So the first thing I noticed was that both the gradients were positive, which means that the lines are moving from the third quadrant to the first.
Yep, so generally in this direction. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so then you would immediately remove B as an option.
Perfect. Okay, because they're going in this direction. Okay.
Yeah. And then I would notice the intercepts, the y-intercepts.
Yep.
So for the first inequality, it's a positive y-intercept, which means quadrant 2, it does pass through quadrant 2.
Yeah, so the intercept's here, right? So you have a line like this.
Yes, yes.
Is that 1 for this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then quadrant 2 would be removed as an option.
Okay, how are you removing quadrant 2 as an option? Tell me more.
Because if it's a positive gradient and it cuts through a y-intercept of 1, it will definitely pass through quadrant 2.
But this is the solution to both of the systems, right? You have to graph this also, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. So when you graph that inequality, it would pass through a y-intercept of -1 at a slightly lower gradient.
So something like this.
Oh, I think I got this wrong.
No, I don't think so. Keep going. That's okay. So so you draw the line. So then you want to do the greater than, right? So for the greater than, this is shaded.
Yeah.
And then for greater than here, this is also shaded.
Yeah.
But we are looking for a solution to both the systems. And so it would be from here, or maybe it's in a different pen. It would be from here and here above. And so it doesn't carbon 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ernie.
No problem.
So the trick here was the solutions to the system, which was both systems. But I want somebody else to come out and tell me if they have a much faster way of doing this. Could you think of, if at all, could you think of a different and faster way of doing this? I'm going to erase everything here. Oops, that's not what we want to do. And maybe it's not that much faster, but let's say graphing and all of that was difficult. Can you think of a different way?
Put it into your GDC.
Sorry, are you saying something? No? Okay. Anybody else? Can they think of a different way? Please raise your hand if you can think of a different way. Bhavni.
So what I did was I didn't graph it, but I just substituted values in it.
Nice.
And yeah. So basically for the first one, so for the first one to get y is greater than 2x plus 1, so I substituted x with 1, so then y must be greater than or equal to 3. So yeah. And then if y is greater than half x minus 1. So y would be greater than minus half, negative half. Yeah, so then it would probably go in the fourth quadrant. So you could cross out C from that.
I see. Okay. Okay. So it's close, but so you're doing this at the point of x equals 1, right? So you get a point over here and you get a point over here. But because it's system to both of them, it has to be greater than both of them. That's why it can only be greater than here. Because any point that's in this range does not satisfy this inequality.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for coming out. Sure. You want to add another one, Wei?
Yeah, so I actually graphed it using my GDC, but another way to do this is find the x-intercepts. So,
got it. Okay. Find the x-intercepts.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense. Yep. Okay.
And then since the first inequality is y greater than equal to, so you count the value for that. So that'll be negative half. So it lies in the second and third quadrant. But when you get the x-intercept for the second equation, it'll lie in the on the x-axis between the first and the fourth quadrant. Since it's y greater than 0. Oh, wait, I don't know. I thought since y is positive, y should be positive whenever it. I don't know. I think there's a.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. So you went through the x-intercept approach, which is also perfectly fine. So thank you for sharing that approach. Okay, so I want to share again. Like I really want you to think about this. When we read the question, notice that the only options are 2, 3, 4, and no solutions. So we only care about this quadrant, this quadrant, this quadrant. We don't even care about this quadrant because it's not even an option. And when we're working with quadrants, remember one of the options in different approaches is plug and chug, different numbers. So what happens if we plug in -1, 1, -1, -1, and 1, -1? If you don't know how to do this question, if you just plug in these 3 points into this equation and this equation, then you will get the answer of C.
Sorry, can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
But if the D is actually the solutions for all 4 quadrants. So if you manage to prove that quadrant 1 has a solution, doesn't that cross out A, B, and C?
That's a good point. Yes, you're right. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, so we do this one as well. Thank you, Dhruv. Good point. So you plug in 4 points. So you start. So the approach would be to start with this one. If you get 1, then you know it's D. No, sorry. This contains no solutions. So if you get no solutions for 1, then you know. No, but that also doesn't make sense, Dhruv, because if you get a solution.
Basically, I was thinking that if you prove there's a solution in 1, then right. As in, if you if you prove that there's no solution in 1, then D gets cancelled out. My bad. Yeah, then you can't cancel out A, B, and C. Yep.
So only if you have a solution in 2, 3, and 4. Well, but then anyways, the answer has to be D. So you don't even really need to put in a 1, 1. So either way, you don't need to put in 1, 1 just by working with the options. So this was a tough question, but again, please try and think of different approaches. Okay, we'll do one more question today. This is a very tough question, but if you don't know how to solve this question, try to work with the options and try and do the plug and chug approach. See what you can come up with. All right, another 20 seconds. All right, ending poll. Okay, so this, I'll read the question. So for polynomial p of x, the value of at p3 is -1, sorry, -2, so p3 equals -2. Which of the following must be true about px? So the question is, must be true about px. Then we read the option, x minus 5 is a factor of px, x minus 2 is a factor, so factor of factor of factor, okay. We have a +2 and a -2, interesting. And then there's a remainder when divided by x minus 3 is -2. So that's what we notice. We don't know where they got the 5 yet. The -2 + 2 probably comes from this. The -3 over here probably comes from this. And the -2 probably comes from here. That's what we're guessing when we're reading the question. So I'm not too sure how to do divide. So I'm just going to work with A, B, and C for now. Can I cross out those MCQ options? Well, I don't know what P of x is. So let's do plug and chug. Let's just guess P of x. So it's a polynomial. So let's see first order polynomial. Polynomial can be first order, second order, etc. It can be any order. So let's do first. So if I have in first order polynomial, it's x plus something equals to -2 when x is 3. Sorry, when x is 3, it's equal to -2. So the polynomial has to be 3 minus 5. That has to be the polynomial, first order. And x minus 5 is divisible by x minus 5, actually. So just at this situation, I can cross out B or C because x minus 2 does not go into x minus 5. Okay, now let's see if I can disprove. I still have A or D. So let's see if I can disprove A. Let's do a second order polynomial. So simple second order is x squared plus x. Let's say we plug in 3, so we get 9 plus, what's 3 is equal to 12. So the answer should be -2, so therefore this is -14. Does that make sense? Because if you plug in -3 in here and here, sorry, if you plug in +3 in here and here, only then will this equal to -2. Make sense? Yep. So let's look at this equation. Is x minus 5 a factor of this equation? Well, not really. Doesn't really look like x minus 5 is a factor. Let's just try one more different polynomial just to be sure. Let's do x squared minus x. So we have 9 minus x is 3. Therefore, this has to be -5, right? 9 minus 3, 6, sorry, 6. So it has to be 7, -7. Because then you get 9 minus 3 minus 7 is equal to, gosh, no, it's 8. Yeah, that's -2. Does x minus 5 go into this one? Nope, also no, so then we can cross out A, so the only option we're left with is D. So you don't even need to know how to divide. You just cross out A, B, and C. Ariman, go ahead.
Yeah, there's actually a much simpler way to do this.
Oh, perfect.
In maths, there's a thing called factor theorem,
okay,
and remainder theorem. So for factor theorem, if you put P of x, and then that must be equal to 0.
So P of x.
So for example,
okay,
yeah. So if you put like in this case for A, B, and C,
yeah,
so either P of 5 or P of 2 or P of -2 has to be 0. But we don't know anything about that. However, one thing that we do know is that if you put P of 3, then the remainder will be -2 according to the remainder theorem.
Got it. Okay, so if you know the
I'm not very sure about the specifics, but I know that since P of 3 is -2, it means x minus 3 when you divide P of X by X minus 3, then the remainder is minus 2. So that's how I got D as the answer.
Awesome, nice. So you got it quickly. That's amazing. So what he's saying is, in the remainder theorem, when you plug in, if you have P of 3 equals minus 2, then the remainder theorem says that P of X divided by X minus 3 is equal to minus 2. That's right, the remainder.
The remainder is minus 2, yeah.
So that's the remainder theorem. So if you haven't done this, you can go and learn factor theorem and remainder theorem, and you will be able to do this question much faster. Okay, so I want to stop here and I want to share a couple things. First is, this last question was very difficult. So if you got it right, good job. If you got it wrong, that's fine. There's a way to do this if you know the math, but you can still do this using basic principles of crossing out and elimination without having to do the solving by yourself. Now, in SAT, there will be many, many such questions like the one we just did, which is really high level. And those questions may be just like 1 or 2. So if you want to practice those questions, we haven't done those questions in this class, you can just Google search difficult SAT questions. And there will be so many difficult SAT questions that you can practice in your own time. So let me share this. They're just like so many different, like 15 hardest, 10 most difficult questions, math questions that everybody gets wrong apparently, meanest SAT questions, difficult SAT questions, hardest ones, meanest ones. You can keep going and study these difficult ones if you want to do that. My point is that you look for a breadth of these difficult questions. Let's say you know remainder theorem. You're basically betting that you're hoping that that concept is tested on the final or on the SAT, which is a good approach. But before you can get there, all I'm saying is before you can get to the hardest questions, you have to make sure that your basics are down and your basics are in your head. And the basics are reading the question, looking at the MCQs, crossing out the wrong options, doing plug and chug, and then narrowing down. That's the basics. Because if you're getting the basics incorrect and you're getting the hard ones right, then that still leaves you at the same place, right, of a lower score. So does this make sense for everybody? Quick poll. Does it make sense to practice the basics? Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much. So we are all on the same page. I love it. All right, and let me leave you with this important thing, which is we have practiced only one test and we learned so much from one test. The practice does not end here. This is the practice approach that I recommend. I recommend you take a paper and do it once for each question. Just do the 4 steps of reading. Just do these 4 steps. Don't solve, just just do the reading, because you want to get that in your head so you can do it faster and faster and faster on the real SAT. Then do the same step, the same test, and just do this question. Think of different approaches. Look at these different options. Try and think of the different approaches you can solve the same question. Really build that muscle of coming up with different approaches so that you can find the shortest one in the test. Once you have done this, only then do an untimed, it's important you do an untimed test so you know what's lack of logic, and then do a root cause error. Write down the root causes and work on those. And only then do you do a time test. And because the time test, it's only adding more pressure for you, but if you have done these first 2 steps properly for every single question, gone through and done the work, then it will become so much faster for you. And you will be able to breeze through a time test. I want to show you what that looks like. That takes a lot of work. These 2 steps take a lot of work. This is what I did with Naman. You will notice that, let's go to the top. You come up with all the different methods you can see. Method 1, 2, 3, method 1, 2, 3, method 1, 2. Each question has so many different methods that you can come up with. And you will notice there's underlines here. There's underlines. Method 1, 2, 3. Each question has so many methods. This is really where the smart student can come up with these methods. This is where the practice comes, actually. So you can go online and find difficult questions But I would argue that this is going to help you more to prepare for the test, because this is really where it's testing your math and reasoning skills. So does that make sense? Quick poll. Awesome. Okay, it makes sense for all of you. Perfect. Thank you. So this is, I'm giving you the practice approach. So please, you can do this practice approach when you do it yourself. Tomorrow we start English. Please print out paper 1 for English because we will be underlining. So print out paper 1. And we'll get started with English. All right, let me send you out with a I Won't Give Up song.
I won't give up. Oh.